After many uses, the coils in your carbon tank can wear out. So let's replace the coils, and this is how you do it. To start, let's remove the tank from the wax caliper device. In this demonstration, we're going to be using an empty tank so you can clearly see how to do this. But before we get started, you're going to want to have a few necessary tools around. To start, we will need the replacement coil and wicks, which looks like this. So you will see there are thin wires here. We will get to those in a little bit. You also need a small Phillips head screwdriver like you use to repair glasses. I recommend having a small container so you can keep your screws in and do not lose them. As your tank will most likely have oil in the bottom of it, I recommend having latex gloves and paper towels on. You won't see me use them in this demonstration since I'm not dealing with any oil. Let's get started. To start, we'll start by removing the mouthpiece. We'll set that to the side. Just to point out what we will be doing, you see two tiny screws. We're going to be unscrewing those, replacing this coil and wick. Let's get started. The first step is you're going to have oil in the bottom of your tank. Let's remove this oil so we do not make a mess as we have to take apart the tank to change the coil. See this knob here? We're going to unscrew this knob to start. And we will safely take this knob and store it in our little container. The next step is we're going to take our syringe and you're going to want to put it into this hole, and you're going to remove as much oil as possible from the bottom chamber. You just simply suck up as much oil and put it in a safe container for right now. Once you have that done, we need to remove this clear part. We will start by unscrewing this bottom. An important thing to note is you have a red O-ring here that separates the chambers. You want to be very careful not to mess up this O-ring as you replace it. To start, let's just unscrew it very slowly. As you can see, I have it partially pulled apart. Oil will most likely start to leak a little bit as you'll have a little excess in the bottom. That's why I recommend using a paper towel. As you notice, as we carefully do this, you want to be sure not to mess up this O-ring. Once you have the clear part removed, set it to the side. As you can see, we will remove both of these screws very carefully so we do not lose them. We have one screw out. Now it's time to remove the second screw. Once we have both screws removed, you can just simply pull the wick and the coil out from those two holes. Here we have our replacement coil and wicks. To start, we need to take these wicks and put them into the hole. As you can see, the wicks don't really want to go in. You may need to moisten the wicks to a point to make it easier to insert into the hole. As you can see, we now have the wicks inserted into the proper holes. The next step is to attach the coil to the screws. We will start by taking our tiny screw and start to screw it in partially into each hole. As you can see here, we have our screws started partially, but still leaving them out because we need to wrap this coil around each screw. To start, we will take the coil and wrap it around the screw. It's kind of hard to demonstrate on the video and show you due to the fact my hand gets in the way. As you can see, we have wrapped the coil around the screw. After you wrap it around the screw, tighten that screw back down. As you tighten the screw, you may need to hold the wick so the wick doesn't want to wrap around also. You simply screw the screw back down and you will see the coils wrapped around the screw, making the good connection. Now let's do it for the next one. As you can see, we have attached each screw to the coil and tightened them both down. Now let's verify the coil is functional and we have it installed properly. We'll simply attach to our wax caliper device carefully. Once you have it attached to the wax caliper device, we want to check and be sure that our coils are fully functional. To do this, merely depress the button. Before you do this, be sure to keep anything away from the coils as you don't want to be burned, especially your hands. Depress the button, and you'll start to see the coils turn orange. That means everything is functioning as it should. After you verify the coils are functional, you can see we have a lot of excess wick here. We will start by trimming this wick down just a little bit so we can easily put everything back together. If we compare the wicks to the original, you can see the difference in size. Now let's take a pair of scissors and we'll trim these down. Once you have them trimmed down, you're going to want to place them so they're not messing with the screws where you have to reattach everything. As you can see on the top, we have a little extra wick here also on the top. Let's trim that down a little bit. Once we have it trimmed down, it's time to put the clear piece back together. Carefully get it on. You want to check. As you can see, you want to check and make sure the O-ring's in place. As you can see, we have a little error there as we start to screw it on. Just carefully, you might want to remove it. Again, being careful, as you can see, the O-ring is coming off. Just simply make sure the O-ring is back in place. Before we screw this fully back together, we want to check and make sure the O-ring has a good seal around the entire container, which this one does. Now let's just screw it back together. Once we have it screwed back together, we can now take our syringe and insert it into the hole and add the oil back that we took out to begin with. Once you have the oil put back in, we take our little knob and screw it back into that hole. After we have the knob back in place, it is time we can place a little dab of our concentrate right there on top of the coils. Simply replace the mouthpiece and you're ready to start vaping again. As you can see, our tank is put back together and ready for use. You depress the button, you see the coils are glowing properly as they should. Congratulations, you have changed the coils in the Karma tank and you're ready to start vaping again.